Hello, my name is Alistair Pickering and I'm a PhD student at University College London. Today I'm going to talk to you about an exciting new approach to interpreting elephant vocalizations using unsupervised deep learning. The 20th century Austrian philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein famously stated that if a lion could talk, we could not understand him. What he meant by this was that a lion's lived experience is so entirely alien from our own that even if we possess the capability of interpreting lion, we would still lack the contextual frame of reference to understand what the lion communication actually meant. In other words, we can't possibly hope to understand lion by listening with human ears. In spite of this, the analysis of animal vocalizations typically relies on the manual human selection of acoustic features of interest, so things such as frequency. And these are acoustic features that are important to human communication, and in some cases they are too for animals. For example, pigs emit high-frequency atonal vocalizations when distressed, similar to humans. But communication systems that are very different to ours, such as elephants, remain harder to interpret. Elephant vocalizations are highly integrated, combinatorial, and many vocalizations sit outside of our audible range. The human selection of elephant acoustic features may under or overestimate what is important to elephant communications, as we simply don't fully know. Interpreting elephant vocalizations using our human frames of reference, therefore, may well be a case of us proving Wittgenstein's point. And the outcome of all of this is that we still cannot fully characterize elephant vocalizations. An alternative approach, which significantly reduces the human decision-making process, is unsupervised deep learning. Unsupervised deep learning uses artificial neural networks which autonomously discover patterns and relationships within data. One of the notable distinctions of this methodology is the near elimination of manual acoustic feature selection. In this unsupervised paradigm, the algorithm takes the lead, reducing the need for human intervention. We're no longer listening with human ears, but with algorithmic ones. In this study, I wanted to test these unsupervised methods against what has previously been achieved using the manual approaches. I've assessed their ability to accurately classify 3 different elephant call types and their ability to identify agonistic behavioural contexts, in our case, competition and nursing. If we can do this, then not only will we have an alternative means of interpreting complex communication systems, but we can also develop a range of automated elephant and other animal welfare systems by removing the current obstacle of slow manual assessments of vocalizations. In order to test these unsupervised methods, I created a repeatable pipeline of processes. The pipeline has 5 steps, from selecting and annotating the audio data to pre-processing and standardizing it, to then passing it through our convolutional neural network for unsupervised acoustic feature extraction before conducting unsupervised reduction of this high dimensional data to lower dimensional space, and finally running statistical tests to assess the performance of the methods for our 2 questions. The dataset I used was taken from a previous study conducted by Hedvig et al. In 2021, and was recorded in the Central African Republic over the course of a year by the Elephant Listening Project. Labels were applied based on visual observations of elephants as they vocalized and include age, sex, behavioral context, distress, and call type. The audio files were pre-processed to isolate the vocalization and to ensure comparability between the audios. This involved applying a bandpass filter to remove any non-relevant frequency bands, zero panning the vocalizations to meet the input window size needed for feature extraction, normalizing the amplitude to prevent caller distance to microphone from erroneously influencing the training, and then reapplying the bandpass filter to remove acoustic artifacts that have been introduced by the process. These pre-processed vocalizations were then passed to the convolutional neural network VGGish, which performed the unsupervised acoustic feature extraction. It does this by having learned and extracted acoustic features from audio spectrograms in a much larger training set. So in this case, around 1.8 million YouTube videos. The learned acoustic features from this much larger data set can then be applied to other audio data sets, such as ours, in a process called transfer learning. I chose VGGish as it's been widely used in ecological studies for feature extraction, and because its training set incorporates some animal vocalizations. The output of this process is a 128-dimensional acoustic feature vector for each vocalization, or in other words, each vocalization ends up with 128 acoustic features. These 128 acoustic features were then reduced to 1 and 2 dimensions using the dimensionality reduction algorithm UMAP. I chose UMAP over alternatives such as principal components analysis because it better preserves nonlinear relationships in the data, which is important for elephants as they produce many nonlinear vocal phenomena such as biphonation. UMAP also better balances global and local structure compared to nonlinear alternatives such as t-SNE, so it can spot patterns and relationships in the immediate vicinity of the data points, but also at a broader global level. Finally, I conducted statistical tests appropriate for each of the questions. For the call type analysis, I calculated silhouette scores for the 2D UMAP projections of the call types. The silhouette score is a goodness of fit calculation with a score above 0.5 representing good evidence for clustering, so I use this as the acceptance threshold. For the behavioural association, I fitted a mixed effects model accounting for the known confounding effects of age and sex by incorporating them as random effects. And I used the standard p-value threshold of 0.05 when assessing the unsupervised method's performance for this question. So, on to the results. How did the methods perform for the call type analysis? Well, we can see on screen the 2D UMAP projections of the vocalizations with the call type labels as colours. So oranges are rumbles, blues are roars, and greens are trumpets. And straight away we can see that all of the orange rumbles have been correctly grouped together and identified to be acoustically similar and, importantly, acoustically dissimilar to other call types, which is great. However, the finer grain distinction between roars and trumpets has not been identified, and they share this common cluster. While roars and trumpets are acoustically similar, and there is some evidence for a subgrouping of trumpets here and also here, ultimately this does not constitute a clear separation. So how does this then play out statistically? Well, we can see a silhouette plot on the left-hand side for each call type with silhouette values along the x-axis. So values above 0 represent correct classification and below 0 incorrect classification. And we have the overall silhouette score values for each call type in the table. So we can see from this that rumbles perform really well, easily exceeding the 0.5 acceptance threshold. Roars and trumpets fall some way short of this. Overall, the whole data set does achieve the 0.5 target, but as we shall see, this must be taken with a pinch of salt. So reflecting on the performance of the unsupervised methods for the call type classification, we have an interesting picture. On the one hand, we do get excellent performance in rumble classification, but there is this lack of finer grain distinction between roars and trumpets. Why might this be? Well, our data is imbalanced. We have 780 rumbles versus 486 roars and just 46 trumpets. Our best performing call is also the one with most data. This rumble overrepresentation also heavily impacts our overall silhouette score of 0.54, which is why I said it needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. Secondly, the sample rate used for the recordings was 4 kHz. Using the Nyquist formula, this restricts the maximum frequency to just 2 kHz. This is absolutely fine for rumbles, which max out at around about 700 Hz, but roars and especially trumpets can exceed 10 kHz. This low sample rate may well have caused the higher frequency distinction between roars and trumpets to be lost. Moving on to the second question, can the unsupervised methods distinguish agonistic behavioural contexts? I've included box plots of the 2 fixed effects on the bottom and the 2 random effects on the top. And we can see clear distinctions between male and female vocalisations and also between age groups. In fact, we have a really nice, clear sequential age pattern from low to high. So adult, subadult, juvenile, and infant. And this pattern tallies with the literature about how biological differences affect vocal properties in elephants. We also see some interesting patterns in the behavioural context and distress fixed effects. So our 2 focus agonistic contexts, nursing and competition, are much higher than the other behavioural contexts, and interestingly, so too is distress. Looking at the mixed effects model results, we have 2 significant findings. We see positive associations for the agonistic nursing behavioural context and also for this presence of distress. The other agonistic behavioural context, competition, has a similar positive association but falls short of statistical significance. So what does this all mean then taken together? Well, we have a positive association for nursing, but not for competition. We also have a positive association for distress. Why might this be? Well, again, we do have small sample sizes overall, but I'm also interested in the wide error bars we see on the box plots. This makes me think that alternative methods of aggregating the information may be worth exploring. So specifically, instead of averaging the feature vectors, selecting the maximum values may help emphasize prominent acoustic features more clearly. And this approach is actually very similar to the max pooling technique, which is widely and successfully used in machine learning. So overall then, do we find that listening with algorithmic ears helps us better decode elephant? Well, we have partially successful outcomes for both questions, with clear adjustments possible to the methods that intuitively would help improve performances. The distress finding is really interesting, and I could see how it could be developed to help zoos identify distress in captive populations and to ensure that they are meeting the regulatory target of ensuring their animals are free from distress. To operationalize these findings for use in automated animal welfare systems, clearly a lot more work would need to be done. A next step would be to use the associations established as a training set for a supervised deep learning model. And this would enable the assessment of whether the findings are consistent when exposed to out-of-sample data. Set against this is the interpretability challenge. The automatically extracted features cannot be linked back to known acoustic features, and the UMAP values are relative, so not biologically meaningful in absolute terms. And yet for me, the most exciting part of all of this is that the methods proposed are very much in their infancy, and there are already new feature extraction convolutional neural networks and dimensionality reduction algorithms available, which could slot into the proposed pipeline and address some or all of these challenges. So thank you all very much for your attention, and to my fantastic supervisors and research collaborators, Daniela, Kate and Santiago, without whose guidance and patience this work would not have been possible. Thank you very much.